Dallas Sportscaster from NBC, Newy Scruggs. He has some great insight from the Dallas Cowboys. He is out in California at Dallas Cowboys training camp. We will talk about the running back situation with Ezekiel Elliott, the quarterback situation with Dak Prescott, and everything going on with the Dallas Cowboys. Some major concerns Newy has with the Cowboys going into the season. We will also talk about Jerry Jones and the owner, and potentially some controversy going on between Jones and the one and only Jimmy Johnson. A tough conversation Newy had recently with Jerry Jones. We'll discuss that, as well as Jalen Brunson's decision to leave the Dallas Mavericks and go to the New York Knicks for a massive contract. That and more on Inside the Huddle, presented by Sportscaster. Newy, thanks for joining me from Dallas Cowboys training camp in California. How's it going?
Oxnard, California is good considering back home. I think every day this week, the high is going to be at least 101, probably getting up to 103 degrees back in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. So, yeah.
I mean, I guess it goes without saying just how big America's team is, the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, you're with the team for what, 6 weeks, all a training camp away from Dallas, Texas, out in California?
I'm only doing 3.
Okay.
The beat writers, they're going the whole way. So I got here July 24th. The opening press conference is the 25th. I'll leave August 10th to go to Denver with the Cowboys. They're going to practice for a few days against the Broncos. Then they'll have their preseason game. So I'll get back to Texas August 14th. And then our weekend guy, he's going to go out to California and finish it off.
When you look at the Cowboys, I know it's early and everybody looks good in OTAs and early in training camp, and guys are not in pads or not really hitting. Everyone looks great. Everyone looks like a Hall of Famer. But what is the mood? What is kind of the temperature out there in the sense of the team? You know, the expectations, you look at this team, I mean, they should be great, right? And so what is the feeling, the mood around the team so far in training camp?
What tells you they should be great? Honestly,
the offense.
Hype machine. The
offense.
Offensive line is by sharp analysis, and they do a good job with their football rankings. They're 14th. Your center is undersized. Your starting left guard left last year. You've got his backup, who you gave a couple starts to last year, Connor McGovern, and you benched him. Your first-round draft pick, Tyler Smith, technically is a tackle, but you got him playing left guard, competing with McGovern. Your all-decade left tackle, Tyron Smith, God bless him, great player, but he misses 4 to 5 games a year now. We're going on a half a decade of this happening with Tyron Smith at left tackle. So offensive line is a concern to me. You look over the receiver spot, Amari Cooper is gone, so now CeeDee Lamb becomes the number 1 player. It's a total different ball game when you become the one and you get all the double coverage. Your number 2 receiver, Michael Gallup, is still coming off a knee injury. He already came out and told us he's not going to play in the first game. I don't expect him to play in the first 3, maybe 4 games. So now you're looking at who's your number 3 receiver. Well, that was Cedric Wilson, who went down to Miami Dolphins. So they're going to have to figure that out. The number 3 receiver, Dalton Schultz, is back as your tight end. He caught 80 balls last year. So right now I'm looking at CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz. These are your best 2 targets, and probably your 3rd most reliable target at this point in time is your backup running back, Tony Pollard. So when you say offensively, they've got to show us some things. I'm a big show me guy. I've covered Jerry's teams for so long. I've heard the hype stuff so long, heard the Super Bowl talk for so long, hadn't seen it. So I'm like, show me, please.
Well, we haven't seen the Super Bowl since '95. And so it doesn't sound like you're insanely optimistic. Is that kind of the sense I'm getting from you, that you're not optimistic about this team? You know, when you look at, they gave Dak all that money, they have a good running back tandem, and yeah, okay, you expect Zeke to be the guy, but do you not expect this team to be a really good team?
I won't say I'm not optimistic, but they're just questions. And I'm one of those, what's the trust but verify? You know, let's see this happen. On Monday, the Cowboys will have their first padded practice. Okay, everything else has been a ramp up. And I'm a big believer in let's see what happens when the pads start popping. Some of the receivers who look good, but before you get hit, you got to take a hit. It's a different thing. some of these linemen who are, not having to sit up here and get punched real hard as they fire off the ball. They're going to get punched real hard here. Bands going to be right on you. Let's see exactly what you do. So I'm a big believer in that. Secondly, Jeff, look at the Cowboys schedule, and you cover the NFC East. There's a reason why we keep seeing repeat winners as champions. When you win the East, the next year, the schedule's a first place schedule. The Cowboys' first 2 games at home, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. Tom Brady's 6-0 in his career against the Cowboys. Then you follow that up with Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cowboys' first 3 games, the receivers they're facing, really good.
Yeah.
Good receiving cores. The running backs you're facing, some good running backs here. And the quarterbacks are Super Bowl quarterbacks. So you've got Tom Brady, Joe Burrow. They face Matt Stafford this year. They face Aaron Rodgers. You got Ryan Tannehill, who's been to the Pro Bowl. You got Jared Goff, who's been to a Super Bowl. You got Jalen Hurts, who's an improved football player. You got some you got Matt Ryan, who's now in Indianapolis, and they've got a good offensive line and a good run game. So I'm looking at 8 quarterbacks. I'm saying, you know what? This is no easy day in the park. I spoke to Micah Parsons about it, some of the defensive players. They're like, hey, man, this is going to be fun. We're looking forward to it. But that is a challenge that I don't think enough people are talking about. I mean, Washington last year dealt with that first place schedule. They didn't handle it very well at all. So this is a challenge for this football team. And if your offensive line is not fixed, then it can be a problem. I think the Cowboys defense has a really good chance to improve off what they did last year because Dan Quinn is back. Michael Parsons is now a year older. But offensively, there's still some questions out here. And as far as the offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, those of us that cover the team, we have many questions at times about how good Kellen really is.
Right. But, you've done this a long time, and I've gone through it too. Do you think you're too close to it where you see all the negatives? Because when you look at the NFC East and you look at the teams, the Giants, really, they're not going to do much, right? And so you look at Washington, could they do something? Maybe Washington could be that surprise team, but what's Carson Wentz going to do? You look at the Eagles, okay, maybe the Eagles are the favorites, but I look at the Cowboys from afar and I go, they have some pieces. And yes, the offensive line is not a sexy, dynamic, but of course you build teams and championships from your lines out, right? And so I understand all the concerns, but when you look at it from afar, I go, the Cowboys to me are a team that can compete for the NFC East easily.
Okay.
But do you think we get
to something? I go back to something Bill Parcells used to say when he coached the Cowboys. He said, all I can go by is what I see. And that's what I'm doing.
Okay.
I'm going by what I see. I do think that Mike McCarthy has his team in a good place where guys understand their role. He spoke at his opening press conference and he said several times, which to me was like, this is a key thing, pay attention to what he's saying. He said, our young players are going to play a major part in how well we start this season, which means look for some young guys to get out there. We're going to tell them what to do. You're going to hope they're in the right spot, but they're going to be young guys, and young guys can make mistakes. So I'm paying very much close attention to what Mike McCarthy is saying and the fact that they're going to lean on young players. The plus for Mike McCarthy is when he was in Green Bay and Ted Thompson was the general manager, they did a lot of drafting. Their whole big thing was about drafting players and playing young guys out there. So Mike has experience in that.
I'm interested in this. Most of us that cover these teams don't talk to the owner after every game, and the owner's not holding a side press conference outside the locker room. It just really doesn't happen in professional sports, let alone the NFL. Jerry Jones, he has been an incredible owner. He's one of the faces of, the NFL. And so what is it like? At times it feels like a circus, but is it a circus covering Jerry Jones after a game? If there's a bad Cowboys loss and a big moment and Jerry's ripping the coach or the quarterback, or is that weird for, you've done this a long time. Like you're not used to the owner in a sense in other markets and other cities, like having these side press conferences, potentially undermining the coach.
Well, I'll say this, Jeff. It's what I've always really known when it comes to covering professional football. My first job was in South Carolina. I was there for 9 months. And then I ended up going to Austin, Texas. And it was Jimmy Johnson's last year with the Cowboys. They ended up winning the Super Bowl. That was when Emmitt Smith.
I want to talk to you about Jimmy Johnson in a second, but go ahead.
Yeah. And so coming in there, covering that team, Jerry was always talking. So, my first professional sports team, this is what I got. So I'm used to this. I'm used to Jerry talking. I know it's not good. Jerry gives you the truth a lot of times. Now,
Which
he
I love.
doesn't slam his quarterbacks. He doesn't do that. The coaches at times can find themselves in the crosshairs, but he's been pretty supportive of his quarterbacks because for the most part, he's had a good run there. But look, it is going to be a sad day when Jerry Jones is not around because the man gives you good stuff.
Right.
Jason Garrett's 10 years with the Cowboys were so boring that it got to the point in time where it's like, okay, after the game, where are you going? You're going to go to Jerry or you're going to go to Jason? I clearly remember we used to have to make that choice in Washington. Like, all right, go across the hall, Jason, stay here with Jerry. We stay with Jerry the whole time. In fact, when we do our news coverage, we have a separate camera wait outside the locker room for Jerry. Just wait on Jerry. And then we'll send another camera in there to go get the podium. And then we'll send a third camera to go in the locker room. But you make sure you're dedicated to getting Jerry Jones because Jerry is going to give you some of the truth that normally coaches and sometimes players will not give you.
Well, listen, I love it. And so, there is media members that go, well, we want the truth. And then you get it. And then you rip them for ripping the team. And so I hate that. But I do love Jerry Jones from afar because he's entertaining. He's interesting. He says interesting things. I love that about Jerry Jones. And even though, okay, Eagles fans don't like him or Giants and Commanders, I almost said Redskins, but Commanders fans don't like him. Objectively, I like the guy. But what I do want to ask you about is, so you had a one-on-one with Jerry Jones at training camp. And I want to quote this. You told him it seems petty not having inducted Jimmy Johnson into the Cowboys Ring of Honor. Tell me about that. What's going on there and his response?
Okay, so at the Hall of Fame, Jerry's on set with all the Fox guys. After Jimmy gets in, and he says, "I'm going to put him in." And so after people kept asking, "When?" Okay, great, you're going to put him in, but when? He didn't do it. He had an opportunity all last year, and he kind of filibustered and said, "Well, I want to do it when it doesn't take away from him getting into the Pro Football Hall of Fame." And that Eagles game, you remember last year, the Eagles game, at halftime, they had brought out the 3 Cowboys members who made the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and Jimmy spoke, and the crowd went crazy. So we're thinking, all right, maybe this is the year Jimmy Johnson finally gets in the Ring of Honor. Right now, there's nobody who's scheduled at all to go in. And he was asked about it the first day of training camp, and he started talking about there's a list, and there's like 10 people who all deserve to be here and who sweated, and we need to talk about them too. Never heard Jerry go on that route before. Okay, I've covered the team a long time. Never heard him try this whole 10 people all deserve. And so I just pressed him on Jimmy because it was where all the local stations got to interview Jerry. So they sit Jerry down in a chair, then we all come in and we all just mic up, and then we go, next person. Jerry wasn't getting, people were trying to go there with Jerry. They weren't getting anywhere. Basically, they were being too kind. So I kind of used a little bit of tenderness when I said, "Jerry, I like you and I respect you," which I do. But I said, it seems very petty. What's going on between you and Jimmy right now? Okay.
Well, what is going on?
Being in the Ring of Honor.
That's when
he went into saying, "Hey, it's BS." And then he later on said, "It's not about Jimmy sniveling."
Well, what is going on? Like, so you ask him, or you mentioned to him that, okay, you think it's petty. I don't know if you say that playful or you come at him a little bit, but what's his response and what is going on for us that don't know between Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson and the Cowboys? Like, is there something going on?
Jeff, as far as we can tell, when he comes out there and says what he did, that Jerry still harbors some pettiness in the breakup. That's the only thing that you can glean from that these two men in their 70s. And look, Jimmy has taken his shots at Jerry for not putting him in. He's gone on before, like he's not putting me in. He's going to get mad at me. He's going to read something I say, and he's not going to like it. So Jimmy's not been shy about saying, "Hey, look, I'm getting played right now." And Jerry doesn't like that people are pushing him on it, and he doesn't want to be pushed on it. So it's pettiness 100%. And Jeff, one reason why I wanted to ask the question, because number one, Jimmy Johnson should be in the Cowboys Ring of Honor. Okay?
Right.
Should be. But I have seen too many of these ceremonies at the Hall of Fame where the person getting in is not fully able to understand through some type of health issue, or they're just dead. Okay. And I used to live in Cleveland. So you go to those Pro Football Hall of Fame inductions, and I'm telling you, man, it's sad when you see some people, see Mick Tingelhoff, who finally gets in the Pro Football Hall of Fame after a great career with the Vikings, and Fran Tarkenton has to talk to him because he can't. It's a doggone shame to see that Cliff Branch gets in the Hall of Fame after he's dead. And I had a conversation with him about 3 or 4 years ago in Dallas, Texas, of why you are not in. It's sad to see Kenny Stabler go in the Hall of Fame after he dies. Oh, he's dead. Now you decide that he should be in the Hall. I don't want to see that for Jimmy Johnson. He doesn't deserve that. The Cowboy fans who love the team and love Jimmy don't deserve that. He should be here.
Right. Speaking of Jerry Jones, you recently said Ezekiel Elliott should be the focus of the Cowboys' run game. How's the competition going there? How do you see that playing out, at the running back position?
There's really no competition. Zeke is the number one running back, and they want to bring Tony Pollard in and put him in some situations. And going back to what we talked about the wide receiving core, Tony Pollard is going to be used a lot, and from getting the ball out of the backfield and putting him up there on the line, and having him get out here in patterns. I mean, Tony Pollard is not an easy person to tackle, so he's a good weapon. So I expect Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator, to use him some more out of that backfield. But they're going to run the football more. They're going to need to. That's why come Monday, when I go out there for practice, I'm going to immediately just focus in on the offensive line and start to see how these guys gel and who can stay healthy, because health has been a major part of that Cowboys offensive line, especially the left tackle spot now for over half a decade.
Yeah, and when you talk about earlier the issues and concerns with the offensive line, you then wonder, okay, well, Dak Prescott is finally healthy. You wonder if he doesn't get hurt, what may have happened, the last couple of years. But when you look at the offensive line now, and with Dak finally healthy, is there that concern, do you think, in the back of his mind going, I don't have the most secure offensive line, and guys that get hurt, it takes a while when they come back to get that first pop to go get up and be like, you know what, I'm fine. It's just a mental thing. It's a human thing.
Yoda said it best in Star Wars, do or do not. There is no try. So that's it. You can lose some guys on the line. It's going to be the next person up. You saw it in Philadelphia. Okay. I mean, remember when Jason Peters, there's so many times like, is Peters playing? Is he not playing? Or is he at 50%? I mean, the Cowboys are kind of in that same spot with Tyron Smith, but you know it. And look, Joe Burrow took 51 sacks from his own offensive line last year in Cincinnati. They had the ball with the opportunity to go down and win the Super Bowl. The offensive line let him down as Aaron Donald ran through there. So there's other people with line issues getting it done. So the Cowboys are going to have to get it done. Do or do not. There is no try.
Right. But what do you think the impact is on Dak, a guy that's been injured and a guy that's finally seems healthy going into the season?
Well, look, Dak's injury had nothing to do with the offensive line. That Giants game when he got hurt, broke the ankle, he was out scrambling. So that's on him. Last year when he had the throwing problem with his shoulder, that was him throwing. It was a 7-on-7, and he just threw the ball too far and strained himself there. So it's not ever been an issue where Dak got creamed because the offensive line didn't hold up and do their job. And this offensive line still has Zach Martin, all pro guard. When Tyron's healthy, he is still one of the best in the National Football League at what he does. Terrence Still is now in his third season at right tackle, so he's getting comfortable there. So by no means, I don't want to make it seem like, hey, man, this is 5 jabronis out here. These guys can play. But like any offensive line, you start mixing and matching some combinations out here, and you're not sure where you're going to go. Let's see. Your offensive line has to gel. I'm lucky because every single practice I go to, Nate Newton is around, and Nate Newton and I become great friends. And I'll say, all right, Big Nate, where are you at? And we watch practice together. And so Nate is very pessimistic sometimes. You can do that when you've won rings and you know what's going on. So maybe Nate's transferred a little bit of that to me, but we're going to go out there, we're going to have our practices, and we're going to sit up here, we're going to go down and look, okay, hey, where are these guys out on this offensive line? So the left guard spot and the left tackle spot are going to be two positions that are going to be very interesting. The backup left tackle, Tyron Smith, right now went out with a shoulder injury. So Matt Willetsko, the rookie. So let's see exactly if he's back in practice when they start popping here and where they go from there. So this offensive line, please, please, please keep that in mind, because if you got a good offensive line, you can go somewhere. You saw it with the Eagles just a couple of years ago.
Right.
The bad offensive line probably ended up costing Doug Peterson his job. It's a problem because when it doesn't go well, it can be an issue.
I love to use the word jabronis in there. It's one of my favorite words. And when you look at Dak, how much pressure is on him? Look, he's, like I said, he's finally healthy. He gets that massive contract. And it's, I imagine it's ready. The Dallas Cowboy fans, including Jerry Jones, are ready to win. I mean, it's been forever since 95, since they got to the conference title game, let alone the Super Bowl.
I don't really worry about Dak Prescott. He does everything right. He does what you're supposed to do. Now, obviously, that last play against the 49ers, that was debacle. Okay, that was an absolute debacle here. He'll learn from that. But I don't go into games thinking, okay, man, I got to worry about this quarterback. But like, he's not Carson Wentz. And what you guys just said, they're like, ooh, what are we going to get here? The question and the challenge this year is going to be, can your quarterback elevate the receiving core? Because you're going to have CeeDee Lamb. So when they double up CeeDee Lamb and then they decide to go ahead and put an extra man down on the box to defend Ezekiel Elliott, where is 4 going with the football? Are you going to find Schultz or are you going to find Gallup? Can they develop another receiver out there? They like the Tolbert kid they took out of South Alabama. Where do you go there? That's one of the beauties of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers looks up here and makes something out of Alan Lazard. He can do that. When Tony Romo was here, Tony Romo made an unknown Miles Austin a Pro Bowl player, made an unknown Laurent St. Robinson out here, made him Laurent Robinson made him a guy who ended up with a big contract in Jacksonville because he could help make that player here. So that's going to be the challenge for Dak Prescott this year.
Yeah, and you look at Mike McCarthy. He comes in during a tough time. There's COVID, all sorts of stuff going on. Is the pressure on him? Is it do or does it feel like it's do or die down in Dallas for Mike McCarthy in year 3?
Yes.
The
owner's going to be 80 years old this year. So how many cracks you're going to get to have at this? I don't know. But so far, I think he's handled it very well. He got criticized on ESPN. Mike Tannenbaum came after him. Ryan Clark came after him. And what they were saying in the press conference and what Mike was saying to me was absolutely wrong because he was asked about it. Jerry Jones opens up the press conference on the 25th and talks about the team. And he came right away and said, I want to talk about Mike McCarthy. And I want you to know that there was a lot of people, a lot of suitors who could have had this job. But you know what? The guy I wanted to have the job is Mike McCarthy. And I feel like he gets a Super Bowl. So he in first off, Jerry also was the person who put a lot of that smoke out there. So Jerry defends him. Mike starts talking. The second question to Mike was about his job, and he answered it. He didn't answer it defensively. He just answered the question because it's been out there. But ESPN decided to make this big deal. Oh, Mike's whining about his job. He's calling out the media about it. It wasn't that case at all. Mike, so far, to me, has been very confident. He knows what's being said. He knows what's out there. This is a prove-it business. And to me, in some ways, I feel like the Cowboy players especially have it easy. I remember when DeMarco Murray was here. DeMarco Murray did not like the media. And I always used to joke, man, you think you hate us. Wait till you go to Philadelphia. You saw how long that lasted up there. So I think Mike McCarthy's fine. You got to win here. And if you don't win, there could be another coach, but I do not believe Sean Payton will be the next coach of the Dallas Cowboys here as we sit August 1st. I don't.
Yeah, DeMarco Murray, he was nice. He was nice. He just didn't like to me, he just didn't like doing it, which was, Chase Utley was that way with the Phillies and different people. Some guys just don't like doing it. My whole thing is with anyone is just be respectful, right? Like, I don't care. Just don't be disrespectful. And that's how I always look at it.
Well, I mean, the thing with DeMarco was, like I said, he hated it, didn't want to do it. But at the same time, you want a contract like he signed and you want to be one of the faces, you have to show up.
Right.
And in a town like Philly, you don't show up, they're going to ask for it. They're going to call you out on it. Boston, New York, here you get to hide a little bit. I mean, after a game, you decide you don't want to talk. DeMarco Murray and remember Des Bryant, these guys run out the locker room. I mean, you didn't see it. Where they at? They're gone. You don't get to do that, Philadelphia. That's one of the things I always like to say. Hey, you guys hate us. Let me tell you what. You go some other places around here, they're gonna hold your feet to the fire. They think we're mean. Going up there, man, you will catch all the smoke.
Yeah. And so going back, kind of my original question about training camp, the Cowboys are one of the only teams that are still doing camp away from home. Have they talked? Has there been any thought about just staying put, in Texas, in Dallas?
No, Jerry's born in El Segundo, California, got the key to the city when they went to their first Super Bowl under him in Super Bowl 27. He loves coming out to LA. They've got a fantastic fan base. Oxnard is a Cowboy city. The players love coming out here. The one time that he decided to go back to Texas, he ended up going to San Antonio. And then Sean Payton was the head coach of the Cowboys because Sean had been out to Oxnard, California when he worked for Parcells. So Sean takes the Saints out. Jerry did not like that. The next year, we were back in Oxnard, California, been coming since. So as long as Jerry's alive, the Cowboys will be training out in Oxnard, California.
Because a lot of coaches have kind of shut it down over the years with different teams just going, it's too much of a pain in the butt to move the whole, franchise somewhere else and this and that, and players in dorms or hotels. It becomes like a big mess. But yeah, I mean, I'm just always curious because so many teams have gotten away from doing that. It is interesting that they're still sticking to it. And obviously, Jerry's not only the boss, but, he really is just very, very hands-on, with that franchise. Last thing for you, switching gears, I do want to talk about the one thing that interests me with the Dallas Mavericks. Jalen Brunson leaving, gets $100 million from the Knicks. I believe the only player in the history of the NBA to get a contract of that magnitude without being an all-star. From what you know from Jalen, what you've seen, how much, I hate to use the word pressure again, but what do you think that fit's going to be like in New York from what you've seen in Dallas?
Different, man. It is different. I mean, the Mavericks are, the number 3 team. It comes to coverage. Cowboys 1, Cowboys 2, and then it's okay. Hey, we got a basketball team here. We got Luka Doncic. So he's going to step in here with people expecting a lot. I mean, that's the thing about New York. And you play for the Knicks, you get this kind of money. They're going to come in here expecting a lot. He was not the number 1 option here. He benefited by playing next to Luka Doncic. His dad's going to be on the staff here. Folks in New York are going to ask for a lot. I'll be rooting for Jalen. He is a class person. He's a glue guy. He's a kind of player that you can win a championship with, but he's not that alpha dog.
Right.
I think he's a player you win with, but they're going to have to get some other pieces around him. But if people are expecting him to come out there and be, a guy that's going to score, 23, 25 a night and be that all-star, I think that's asking a lot of him because it's something he hasn't had to do before. So I'll be very interested to see exactly what the plan is and how they use him. But, the guy is a heck of a player, heck of a person.
I saw it at Villanova. I mean, I saw it at Villanova. He wins a championship there. And again, he's the guy you want with the ball as a facilitator, but he's not as you said, he's not your guy. But, he's been around it his whole life, with his dad, Rick, playing in the NBA forever and coaching him up and things like that. And, he's had a relationship with the Knicks president since he's known him since he was born. Right. And so there is a lot of just familiarity there in New York. And so it is interesting to go, okay, seeing him now from afar in the NBA, to go from Dallas, to go to New York, that massive contract, as we talked about, even in the NFL, comes with a lot of pressure.
Yeah, a lot of expectations. And they'll lose faith in you quick in New York. That's the thing about going there. You don't produce right away, it can be a problem. I look at Joey Gallo, who went for the Rangers to play for the Yankees, and he's struggling, and they are riding him like crazy. So I hope Brunson is able to make an immediate splash. It's just tough. And sometimes people get mad at a player. They look at the contract and so are you asking him to do what made him this really good player in Dallas? Looks like they're asking for him to do a lot more. And you sign a contract like that, they're going to look for a lot more. Does he give it to in year 1? Will people be patient? That's going to be the interesting thing. But I'm rooting for him. It's Mark Cuban's fault that he's not there. It's all on the Mavericks. They messed that up. But I do like the player a lot, and I hope he can make it work in New York.
Yeah, man. Mark Cuban, Jerry Jones. You have arguably the 2 most interesting owners in professional sports in one town. It's pretty remarkable.
Hey, look, we have been very fortunate, but across. I'll say this: I think one of the biggest problems in the NFC East is we've got more. The whole group of owners are meddlesome. Okay, Daniel Snyder's in his business. Like, hey, I want you to take the Haskins. John Mara's involved with the Giants. I mean, people got to know that he is, and Jeff Lurie's very involved with the Eagles. So I think it's hard to have so many owners who want to be involved, and the other decision makers there have to get with the owner and give the owner what he wants. I think that's been a problem the past couple of years for folks in this division, despite the Eagles having won a Super Bowl recently and the Giants having won one in the last 11, 12 years. I do think there's too much meddling going on here because you simply cannot run a franchise be in a suit the way they are. These guys aren't out here scouting. They are every day in the trenches doing this thing. So I do think that's a part of the problem where you look at, hey, here's Stan Kroenke sitting in the booth somewhere else, running his businesses, comes down on Sundays and bam, here's what the Rams are giving him. Same thing with the Buccaneers folks. I do think there's a difference in who's trying to be out here running this thing. Bob Kraft found out real quick when he was trying to run it and decided, you know what, let me get out of the way, let Bill do it. So I think these owners, yeah, you paid for it. Sure, you got the right. Yeah, you like being a personality, but I do think it hurts your football team when your owner's out there this vocal.
Yeah, look, Stan Kroenke you mentioned. I mean, he is hated in St. Louis, just despised for what he did out there. But that's a whole nother story for another day. Newy, thanks for joining me. Great insight. Where can we find you on Twitter? I love following you. You have great insight, great stuff from Cowboys camp.
Twitter, it's at Newy Scruggs, NEWYSCRUGGS on Facebook, Newy Scruggs Sports, NEWYSCRUGGS Sports.
Great follow. Thanks so much for the insight. Great talking to you. Great catch.